How Europe rebuilt its currency after World War II. The financial comeback. That changed the world intro. The hook, a broken continent, and an impossible question in 1945. Europe's currencies were supposed to be dead. Cities were flattened. Factories were ash. Governments were bankrupt. Inflation had destroyed savings. Black markets ruled daily life, and trust in money itself had collapsed. In Germany, people used cigarettes instead of cash. In France and Italy, prices doubled, then doubled again. Britain was technically victorious, yet nearly insolvent. And yet, just a few decades later, Europe would hold some of the strongest, most trusted currencies on earth. The German Deutschmark, the French franc, the British pound. So here's the mystery that challenges everything we think we know about finance. How did a continent that lost its capital, credibility, and confidence rebuild its money and create a financial system that still shapes your life today? The answer is not simple. It involves bold decisions, painful sacrifices, failed experiments, and one of the most misunderstood financial interventions in history. And to understand it, we have to start at the moment when European money stopped working altogether. Part 1. Origins, when money collapsed. World War II didn't just destroy Europe's cities, it destroyed the meaning of money. By 1945, governments had printed enormous amounts of currency to fund war efforts. Gold reserves were depleted. Trade networks were shattered. Production had collapsed. This created a deadly economic loop. Less production meant fewer goods. Fewer goods meant higher prices. Higher prices forced governments to print more money. More money caused even worse inflation. In Germany, this was a terrifying echo of the 1920s hyperinflation, when wheelbarrows of cash bought a loaf of bread. By the end of World War II, the Reichsmark was so worthless that workers were often paid in food. Across Europa, official currencies became fiction. The real economy ran on cigarettes, coffee, soap. US dollars money no longer represented value, it represented failure. And here's the key problem Europe faced. You cannot rebuild an economy if no one trusts the currency. Before Europe could rebuild roads, factories, or governments, it had to rebuild belief. Part 2. The rise. The radical reset nobody expected. The turning point came from an unexpected idea. What if the old money had to die for the new economy to live? Germany's currency shocked 1948 and 1948. The Allies made a decision that shocked the population. They scrapped the Reichsmark. Overnight, a new currency was introduced, the Deutschmark. Citizens were allowed to exchange only a limited amount of old money for the new one. Savings were wiped out, debts were erased. Pain was immediate. But something extraordinary happened. For the first time in years, shops filled with goods, black markets vanished. People returned to work. Why? Because the new currency was scarce, credible, and protected from political printing. This wasn't just a currency reform. It was a psychological reset. The Marshall Plan, often misunderstood. Around the same time, the United States launched the Marshall Plan, sending over $13 billion to Europe. But here's a twist most people miss. The Marshall Plan didn't rebuild Europe by dumping cash. It rebuilt Europe by forcing discipline. Funds were tied to budget control, trade cooperation, industrial productivity. Countries had to prove they could manage money responsibly. The result, European currencies began to rise, not because of aid but because trust returned. Part 3. The breaking point. Success creates new problems. By the 1950s and 60s, Europe was booming. Germany experienced the Wirtschaftswunder, the economic miracle. France modernized its industries. Italy industrialized. At record speed, Britain rebuilt its global financial role. Currencies strengthened. Confidence grew, but success introduced a new danger. Fixed exchange rates. Under the Bretton Woods system, European currencies were pegged to the US dollar, which was backed by gold. At first, this stability helped trade. But over time, economies grew at different speeds. Inflation varied by country. Governments wanted more flexibility. By the late 1960s, cracks appeared. Speculators attacked weaker currencies. The system that stabilized Europe now restricted it. And then, in 1971, the foundation collapsed. The United States abandoned the gold standard. The anchor was gone. Part 4. Fallout when currencies were left alone. The 1970s were brutal, without gold or fixed pegs. European currencies fluctuated wildly. Inflation surged. Oil shocks crushed economies. Some countries printed money to ease pain. Others tightened policy. The results diverged. Germany, obsessed with inflation after its traumatic past, kept strict monetary control. Its currency strengthened. Others struggled. This created a new problem. A divided Europe couldn't share a stable future if their currencies moved in opposite directions. The solution would reshape global finance forever. Part 5. Failed fixes and the birth of a radical idea. Europe tried several fixes. Currency bans, exchange rate mechanisms. Coordinated interventions, most failed. Speculators always found the weak link. So policymakers ask an unthinkable question: what if Europe didn't need many currencies at all? What if the answer to currency instability was unity? This idea sounded impossible. Different cultures, different economies, different fiscal habits, but the memory of collapse was stronger than fear. Part 6. The modern parallel. Why this story matters today. In 1999, the euro was born. It wasn't just a currency, it was a promise. Never again hyperinflation. Never again competitive devaluations. Never again financial chaos born from distrust. And yet, look around today. Governments run historic deficits. Central banks print trillions. Trust in institutions is eroding. Inflation has returned. The patterns are repeating. The same forces that destroyed European currencies in the 20th century. Debt, politics, and loss of confidence are back in new forms. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. Conclusion. 3 takeaways from Europe's currency comeback. Takeaway number 1. Money is trust, not paper. Currencies rise and fall, not on numbers but on belief. Takeaway number 2. Painful resets often create real recovery. Europe recovered because it accepted short-term pain for long-term stability. Takeaway number 3. Stability requires discipline. Every strong currency in Europe was built on limits to political power over money. A final warning: the moment societies forget why discipline mattered, they start repeating the mistakes that destroyed trust in the first place. The real question isn't how Europe rebuilt its currency. The real question is whether today's world is strong enough to do the same before the next collapse. If you found this breakdown valuable, like the video, subscribe for deep finance history, and comment below. Is today's global financial system stronger or more fragile than post-war Europe? Because the past isn't finished teaching us yet.